And that's the truth. Now, the studio didn't know that, but I convinced them. I said, we're going to dive to the wreck. We're going to film it for real. We'll be using it in the opening of the film. It'll be really important. It'll be a great marketing hook. And I talked them into funding an expedition. Sounds crazy, but this goes back to that theme about, your imagination creating a reality. Because it actually created a reality where 6 months later, I found myself in a Russian submersible 2.5 miles down in the North Atlantic, looking at the real Titanic through a viewport. Not a movie, not HD, for real. Now that blew my mind. And, it took a lot of preparation. We had to build cameras and lights and all kinds of things. But it struck me how much this dive, these deep dives, was like a space mission, where it was highly technical and it required enormous planning. And you get in this capsule, you go down to this dark, hostile environment where there's no hope of rescue if you can't get back by yourself. And I thought, wow, I'm like living in a science fiction movie. This is really cool. And so I really got bitten by the bug of deep ocean exploration. Of course, the curiosity, the science component of it, it was everything. It was adventure, it was curiosity, it was imagination, and it was an experience that Hollywood couldn't give me. Because, I could imagine a creature and we could create a visual effect for it, but I couldn't imagine what I was seeing out that window. As we did some of our subsequent expeditions, I was seeing creatures at hydrothermal vents and sometimes things that I had never seen before, sometimes things that no one had seen before, that actually were not described by science at the time that we saw them and imaged them. So I was completely smitten by this and had to do more. And so I actually made a kind of curious decision. After the success of Titanic, I said, okay, I'm going to park my day job as a Hollywood movie maker, and I'm going to go be a full-time explorer for a while. And so, we started planning these expeditions, and we wound up going to the Bismarck and exploring it with robotic vehicles. We went back to the Titanic wreck. We took little bots that we had created that spooled a fiber optic, and the idea was to go in and do an interior survey of that ship, which had never been done. Nobody had ever looked inside the wreck. They didn't have the means to do it. So we created technology to do it. So, here I am now on the deck of Titanic, sitting in a submersible and looking out at planks that look much like this, where I knew that the band had played. And I'm flying a little robotic vehicle through the corridor of the ship. When I say, I'm operating it, but my mind is in the vehicle. I felt like I was physically present inside the shipwreck of Titanic, and it was the most surreal kind of deja vu experience I've ever had, because I would know before I turned a corner what was going to be there before the lights of the vehicle actually revealed it, because I had walked the set for months when we were making the movie. And the set was based as an exact replica on the blueprints of the ship. So it was this absolutely remarkable experience, and it really made me realize that the telepresence experience, that you actually can have these robotic avatars, then your consciousness is injected into the vehicle, into this other form of existence. And it was really quite profound. And maybe a little bit of a glimpse to what might be happening some decades out as we start to have cyborg bodies for exploration or for other means, in many sort of post-human futures that I can imagine as a science fiction fan. So, having done these expeditions and really beginning to appreciate what was down there, such as at the deep ocean vents where we had these amazing animals. They're basically aliens right here on Earth. They live in an environment of chemosynthesis. They don't survive on sunlight-based system the way we do. And so you're seeing animals that are living next to 500-degree centigrade water plumes that you think they can't possibly exist. At the same time, I was getting very interested in space science as well. Again, it's the science fiction influence as a kid. And I wound up getting involved with the space community, really involved with NASA, sitting on the NASA advisory board, planning actual space missions, going to Russia, going through the pre-cosmonaut biomedical protocols and all these sorts of things, to actually go and fly to the International Space Station with our 3D camera systems. And this was fascinating, but what I wound up doing was bringing space scientists with us into the deep. and taking them down so that they had access, astrobiologists, planetary scientists, people who were interested in these extremophile environments, taking them down to the vents and letting them see and take samples and test instruments and so on. So here we were making documentary films, but actually doing science and actually doing space science. I'd completely closed the loop between being the science fiction fan, as a kid, and doing this stuff for real. And, along the way, in this journey of discovery, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about science, but I also learned a lot about leadership. Now, you think director's got to be a leader of, captain of the ship, all that sort of thing. I didn't really learn about leadership until I did these expeditions, because I had to, at a certain point, say, what am I doing out here? Why am I doing this? What do I get out of it? We don't make money at these damn shows. We barely break even. There's no fame in it. People sort of think I went away between Titanic and Avatar and was buffing my nails someplace, sitting at the beach. Made all these films, made all these documentary films that, for a very limited audience. So no fame, no glory, no money. What are you doing? You're doing it for the task itself, for the challenge, and the ocean is the most challenging environment there is, for the thrill of discovery, and for that strange bond that happens when a small group of people form a tightly knit team, because we would do these things with 10, 12 people, working for years at a time, sometimes at sea for 2, 3 months at a time. And in that bond, you realize that the most important thing is the respect that you have for them and that they have for you, that you've done a task that you can't explain to someone else. When you come back to the shore and you say, well, we had to do this, and the fiber optic, and the attenuation, and this and that, all the technology of it, and the difficulty, the human performance aspects of working at sea, you can't explain it to people. It's that thing that maybe cops have, or people in combat that have gone through something together and they know they can never explain it. Creates a bond of respect. So when I came back to make my next movie, which was Avatar, I tried to apply that same principle of leadership, which is that you respect your team and you earn their respect in return. And it really changed the dynamic. So here I was again with a small team and, in uncharted territory, doing Avatar, coming up with new technology that didn't exist before, tremendously exciting, tremendously challenging, and we became a family over a 4.5-year period, and it completely changed how I do movies. So people have commented on how, well, you brought back the ocean organisms and put them on the planet of Pandora. To me, it was more of a fundamental way of doing business, the process itself that changed as a result of that. So what can we synthesize out of all this? What are the lessons learned? Well, I think number one is curiosity. It's the most powerful thing you own. Imagination is a force that can actually manifest a reality. And the respect of your team is more important than all the laurels in the world. I have young filmmakers come up to me and say, give me some advice for doing this. And I say, don't put limitations on yourself. Other people will do that for you. Don't do it to yourself. Don't bet against yourself. And take risks. NASA has this phrase that they like, failure is not an option. But failure has to be an option in art and in exploration, because it's a leap of faith. And no important endeavor that required innovation was done without risk. You have to be willing to take those risks. So that's the thought I would leave you with, is that in whatever you're doing, failure is an option, but fear is not. Thank you.